All right, so this is going to be reading chapter 2 through 4 from the Book of Truth, or the Voice of Osiris. Chapter 2. I shall now unfold to you, O my beloved children, exactly what took place with regard to the descent and reproduction from my father after that all had been prepared for the process of evolution by our Father God, who dwells in divine heaven, and our brother God, who is in divine paradise. Remember, my children, that all at that time of creation were born wed, twin, and spouse eternal, and they were not to reproduce their kind unless it was commanded them by the Father God through the various channels of communication which were used. Our Father God spoke unto my beloved Father, who is El Daoud, and did command him that he did cause to be reproduced 3 son-daughters, who should all have their special task given unto them when the time of their calling came. Remember, my children, that I now speak of divine heaven, and also remember that at that time of divine birth, by the breath of the parental overplus, were all born to absolute maturity from the very beginning. All that was necessary was spiritual guidance and knowledge to allow those divine men to carry out their special works to which they had been appointed. It was then that my Father, hearkening unto the voice of our Father God, did call from out of himself, out of him her, El Daoud Evam, his 3 son-daughters, who are as follows. I give them to you in the order of their divine birth. Arbel-jesus, arbel-jesus, El-Nus, El-Nui, osiru-setthu, isisu-setthi. These 3 pairs of son-daughters were then at the command of our Father God instructed in the various missions that they did have to carry out. I and my twin and spouse eternal are the 3rd dual-ray children of my blessed Father, who is El Daoud. All the offspring from the Father King, who is the father of the whole Duman-Adamic race, were called Ray children because that they were raised from the very self of the Father-Mother King. El Daoud Evam and the whole of the Duman-Adamic family are directly descended from them. El Daoud Evam. Chapter 3. Now, my children, that I have made certain important matters clear unto you, I shall deal for a brief space with the material spheres of gross matter, of which there are 14 in all, there being 13, and the sun, which is 14. The one which concerns this my book unto you, my children, is your own planet, which is the world called Earth, and which is the grossest and furthest removed from the divine spheres. First of all, my children, I shall touch lightly on the reason that caused Godhead to bring into being the material spheres of gross matter. It was this, namely, that God of his great wisdom had evolved a plan of evolution whereby the divine sparks of the overplus should evolve upwards and should at their appointed time be able to become God's children by adoption, even as the sons of God, the Duman-Adamics, were God's children of the breath and the raised children of my Father, who is El Daoud. This state of evolution was to start at its appointed time on each of the spheres of gross matter, and the various son-daughters of the Father-Mother were to be set over them to guide them in their states of evolution. These viceroys also to be chosen at the very word of my Father, who is El Daoud. Having made this point clear unto you, my children, I would also make your minds quite clear as to the meaning of the divine sparks. These were forms of life which were brought into conscious being from the overplus of God the Father-Mother, and were awakened at the commands of the various viceroys of the different spheres of gross matter. They were only awakened to conscious life at the express command of Godhead through his viceroys. Having explained this fact to you, my children, I shall record the more important happenings which took place on the material world called Earth. The 2 younger brothers of El Daoud, who were Yeve and Erinus, I give them in the order of their birth, were at the sanction of God and at the choosing of El Daoud duly appointed to their duties on the world called Earth, on which you are now incarnate, O my children. The bodies which were at that time worn by the Duman-Adamics were appointed to do work on the material worlds of gross matter were called coats of skin. and consisted of an outer covering in the form of the divine men of heaven, but they had neither organs nor blood of any description whatsoever. As in the case of the divine and semi-divine spheres, they were born son-daughters, and the method of reproduction was the same. The coat of skin possessed no external mortal sex organs, neither was reproduction indulged in unless expressly commanded by those in authority to order it. The same form of body, O my children, was appointed for those divine sparks which should have been on the material worlds of gross matter, and who should be evolving towards that state of perfection, as was required by the Father, Mother, God. The only difference was in the reproduction of their kind. When their period of work was finished in their existing bodies, and they had accomplished all that could be done whilst wearing that particular body, it was ethereally disintegrated, and a new and more advanced type of body was created for the already waiting divine sparks. So the state of evolution was to go on until that stage was reached when they would be on a level with their divine brothers of the higher spheres, who were able as son-daughters to reproduce their own kind whenever commanded. Chapter 4. This state of divine plan proceeded without event for many, many ages of material earth's time. When I now speak of earth, O my children, I am entirely dealing with this planet on which you are now at present incarnate. Evolution proceeded according to the plan of Godhead, and the work of Yahweh and Erinus was carried on most successfully. Now, my children, let it be known unto you that at that period of evolution, all the spheres within the circle of Godhead were in absolute telepathic communication with one another. I mention this fact that you may see that this was primarily the cause for the state of evil which has existed upon earth since the days of Lemuria and Atlantis. As I have told you, my children, earth is and was created the furthest from divine heaven, and was also created the grossest of the material worlds. For this reason, it will be seen that the process of evolution was not so quick, so that taking place on the other worlds of gross matter. Alas, this made itself apparent to the active brain of Erinus, who was always one to use his own power of thought within himself. He became dissatisfied, and realizing also his power as a divine son of God, the Father, Mother, he decided to experiment with the process of evolution in his own way. All he required was the creative word of power which Yahweh alone held. Would Yahweh give it to him? It was necessary for the well-being of the earth's evolution that he should act by himself. Why should he be in a position of subordinate to his elder brother, who was El Daoud? He had visions of quick progression. The present one was too slow, thus reasoned Erinus, and he determined to seek out Yahweh and to show him how good his plan was. This he did, and alas, his subtlety of intellect prevailed. Yahweh initiated him in the use of the word of power, and so, in a few moments, so to speak, the work of evolution on earth was held up. Nay, rather was it diverted into a side channel, and the steps of those men of earth have to be retraced until they find the permanent way from which they strayed. I shall now proceed to unfold as shortly as possible what took place from this time forward. One word would I say unto you, my children, when reading this my book, use your own judgment. It would be impossible to touch on every point, but from what I have set down, you can put the rest in order for yourselves. Some of you may find it exceedingly difficult to do so. To these I would say, strive on. The day has dawned when you have got to reason out things for yourselves. Remember that the laws of Godhead are most simple, logical, and orderly. This being the case, strive to grasp the significance of what I have set down in my book to you, my beloved children. If at first you are unsuccessful, try again. For I say unto you that when you perceive the true divine laws of Godhead, you cannot live as some of you do, wrapped up in self and having no thought for those around you. Remember that rich through worldly wealth, though some of you may be, yet it is he who is poor from a material standpoint and spiritually blessed through his own labors nearer to the Godhead than are the materially wealthy who live for themselves and themselves alone. For I say unto you, my children, this is the reason that I send this my book unto you, that you may rectify your faults and turn again your faces unto the light that is offered by the Father, Mother God. That is the ending of the readings of chapter 2 through 4 from the Book of Truth.